The screens went dark all at once. Every television, phone, and computer display across Earth flickered and came back to life, showing the same image. A tall, metallic figure standing against a backdrop of stars. Commander Jack Stone watched from the Pentagon's control room as the alien spoke in perfect English. Its voice was smooth, almost peaceful, but something in it made his skin crawl. "People of Earth," the figure said, "you have been chosen for integration into the Galactic Federation's workforce program. This is an honor. Resistance is unnecessary and will only cause suffering." Jack's hands tightened into fists. 20 years in the military had taught him to recognize threats wrapped in pretty words. This wasn't an invitation. It was a conquest. The world erupted in chaos. In New York, people filled the streets. In Tokyo, millions watched as massive ships appeared in the sky, breaking through clouds like mountains of metal. In London, military jets scrambled upward, only to fall silent and powerless as green lights washed over them. "Sir," a young officer called out to Jack, "we're losing everything. Our missiles won't launch, tanks won't move, even our rifles are just dead." Jack nodded quietly. He had expected this. Any civilization advanced enough to cross the stars would have ways to disable human weapons. But what the aliens didn't understand was that humanity's greatest weapon wasn't in their guns or bombs. The first collection ships landed 3 days later. They were enormous, like cities turned upside down, touching down in every major population center. The aliens called themselves processors, and they moved with cold efficiency. Their armor was sleek, their weapons silent, and their methods absolute. Families were separated into groups: workers, technicians, laborers. The aliens scanned each human, analyzing their potential usefulness to the Federation. Those who fought back were not killed. They were simply paralyzed and processed like the others. Death would have been a waste of resources, the processors explained. In the chaos of the Washington Processing Center, Jack watched and remembered. He noticed how the aliens never looked down, how they moved in perfect patterns, how their technology glowed different colors when they performed different tasks. Every weakness, every pattern, every potential flaw. He stored it all away. A blue armored processor approached him. Designation: Military Command. Category: High-risk asset. Assignment: Deep space mining operation. The alien's voice was flat, emotionless. "You will be valuable." Jack didn't resist as they led him to the transport ship. He saw others fighting, screaming, crying. But he kept his face calm, because he had seen something none of the aliens had noticed, something in their perfect, orderly system that would be their downfall. The aliens understood human biology. They understood human technology. But they didn't understand human nature. They didn't understand that by spreading humans across their empire, they weren't weakening humanity. They were giving them targets. They didn't understand that by processing military leaders separately, they were creating a network of trained resistance fighters. They didn't understand that humans, above all else, never accepted chains. As the transport ship lifted off, Jack caught his last glimpse of Earth through a window. The planet looked peaceful from space, wrapped in a barrier of alien energy that glowed like a cage of light. But Jack knew better. This wasn't the end of humanity's story. This was just the beginning. The aliens thought they were getting workers. Instead, they were spreading a virus of freedom across their perfect ordered galaxy. And soon enough, they would learn why Earth's history was filled with stories of slaves who became conquerors. Jack smiled slightly as the ship entered faster than light travel. The aliens had made 3 critical mistakes. They had taken humanity's home. They had separated their families. And most importantly, they had given them access to advanced technology. Now all he had to do was wait. Because if there was one thing humans knew how to do, it was to turn their prisons into fortresses. Mary Wells had been a librarian before the aliens came. Now she worked in the massive data storage facility on Mining Station 147. sorting through information crystals that contained the Federation's knowledge. The aliens thought this was safe work for a simple human. They were wrong. Every crystal she touched taught her something new. The aliens never considered that someone who spent their life organizing books would be so good at finding patterns in their data. They never thought she would understand their language so quickly. Worker 24,601. Proceed to Section G for efficiency assessment. The overhead speaker announced. Mary kept her face blank as she walked to the testing area. This was the third assessment this week. The aliens were confused by something. In the assessment chamber, she found other humans already there. A miner named Tom had arms thick with muscle from weeks of working with heavy equipment. Behind him stood a young woman who had been a college athlete. They all shared the same look, tired on the outside, but with sharp eyes that missed nothing. The blue processor in charge activated the testing chamber. Begin physical endurance sequence, it commanded. Mary and the others started the familiar routine. Lifting, running, working with tools. But this time, she noticed the aliens taking more detailed readings than usual. They were especially interested in how long humans could keep working without rest. Remarkable, one processor said to another. These specimens maintain productivity at 87%, even after standard exhaustion thresholds. Previous species averaged 23%. Assessment. Humans possess unusual physical resilience. The second processor replied. Recommendation. Increase work quotas by 200%. Mary stored this information away, just like she stored everything else. The aliens didn't realize they were revealing their own weaknesses. Their surprise at human endurance meant they had never dealt with a species like humanity before. Back in the worker pods that night, Mary carefully etched her findings into the thin metal sheet hidden beneath her sleeping mat. She had started keeping records the day she arrived. The aliens never searched the pods. Their scans couldn't detect simple scratches in metal, and they believed humans were too primitive to communicate this way. But humans in her section had developed a whole language of small marks and scratches. They passed information during their daily routines, a brush of hands, a drop tool, a moment of shared work. The aliens saw only obedient workers. They didn't see the network growing under their feet. Through these hidden messages, Mary learned about other stations, about the mining colonies where humans worked deep underground, learning the aliens' drilling machines, about the transport hubs where human workers memorized ship routes and security patterns, about the processing centers where new humans arrived every day, bringing news from Earth. The news wasn't good. The aliens were harvesting Earth's atmosphere, converting it into something they found more valuable. They had given themselves 50 Earth years to complete the process. After that, humanity's home would become unlivable. But they had made a crucial mistake. In their arrogance, they had placed humans exactly where they needed to be. In their minds, their ships, their data centers, their machinery. Every human worker was a potential saboteur. Every human mind was learning, adapting, preparing. That night, as the station's artificial sun dimmed to signal sleep period, Mary added one more mark to her hidden record. The aliens had just increased work quotas across all stations. They thought they were exploiting human endurance. Instead, they were giving humans more access, more opportunities, more chances to learn their systems. She smiled in the darkness. The aliens thought humans were their best workers. Soon they would learn that humans made even better revolutionaries. William Reed had one advantage over the aliens. They thought he was stupid. As a maintenance worker on their massive space station, they saw him as nothing more than a simple machine cleaner. They never guessed he had been a computer engineer before the invasion. The aliens' mistake was using humans to fix their technology. Every broken panel, every malfunctioning door, every flickering light was a lesson. William learned their systems piece by piece, finding patterns in their complex machinery that reminded him of Earth's computers. Today, he was fixing a security scanner in the lower levels. The aliens never watched him work anymore. Their scans showed he always completed his tasks perfectly. They didn't notice that he spent an extra 30 seconds studying each device he repaired. "Hey, Bill," another maintenance worker called out softly. It was Robert, carrying a box of spare parts. Their eyes met briefly. Robert's sleeve shifted, revealing a small mark on his wrist, 3 dots in a triangle. The sign meant new information had arrived from other stations. William kept working, but his mind raced. The human resistance network was growing faster now. What had started as scratch marks and whispers had evolved into a galaxy-wide web of information. Humanity's greatest strength wasn't in their muscles or their endurance. It was in their ability to adapt and communicate. Later that night, in the quiet of the maintenance shaft, William met with other workers. They shared their discoveries in whispers while pretending to clean the air filters. "The mining colonies have found a way to send messages through the mineral shipping containers," Robert explained, "and the processing centers have learned to tap into the aliens' communication networks." William nodded, adding this to his mental map of their growing resistance. "I found something too," he whispered. "Their security systems, they all connect to a central network. And the network has gaps." The aliens' technology was advanced, but it had a weakness. It was too perfect, too organized. They never expected anyone to use their maintenance systems for anything except repairs. They never imagined that humans would understand their technology well enough to exploit it. William had discovered that the aliens' emotions were different from humans. They couldn't understand or detect certain human emotional states. Their security systems were designed to spot anger, fear, and aggression, but they missed things like quiet determination or patient planning. As he worked through his shift, William watched the aliens going about their duties. They moved with mechanical precision, following their schedules exactly. They never varied their routines, never questioned their orders, never imagined that their perfect system could be used against them. In the past month, small acts of rebellion had begun. Equipment would mysteriously break down. Security cameras would lose power for a few seconds. Supply shipments would arrive late. Nothing big enough to raise alarms, but enough to create tiny cracks in the aliens' perfect system. The aliens blamed these problems on normal wear and tear. They never suspected that humans were testing their defenses, learning their responses, preparing for something bigger. Through the hidden network, William received news from Earth. The atmospheric harvesting was accelerating. They had less time than they thought. But they also had more help than the aliens knew. Every human worker was now part of the resistance, whether the aliens knew it or not. That night, as William lay in his sleeping pod, he thought about the future. The aliens had built their empire on strict hierarchy and absolute control. They couldn't understand that by trying to enslave humanity, they had given them exactly what they needed to fight back. He smiled in the darkness. Soon, very soon, the aliens would learn that their perfect system had a fatal flaw. It had humans in it. Commander Jack Stone stood in the deep mines of Processing Station 92, watching the alien machines drill into the asteroid's core. After 3 months of working here, he had finally figured out how they operated. The aliens didn't just use technology. They were connected to it through a vast neural network. This discovery had cost them dearly. Tom, a young miner, had died making sure this information reached Jack. The aliens had labeled it an accident, but Jack knew better. Tom had sacrificed himself to get close enough to an alien control panel during an emergency shutdown. Worker 31,887, return to your section, a red processor commanded as it passed by. Jack nodded obediently and walked back to his mining unit. The aliens had grown confident in their control over humans. They didn't notice how the miners watched their movements, studied their patterns, learned their weaknesses. Through the hidden network Mary Wells had established, Jack now knew that humans across the galaxy were making similar discoveries. The alien neural network that made their technology so powerful was also their greatest weakness. It connected everything and everyone in their society. In the rest period, Jack met with his secret council of former military personnel. They gathered in the deep tunnels where the alien sensors couldn't reach, their voices barely above whispers. The maintenance workers have found a way to tap into their communication systems, reported Lisa, a former Air Force captain. They can intercept basic commands now, and the data center workers have cracked part of their language, added Mike, who had been a Marine sergeant. They're using the aliens' own teaching systems against them. Jack shared his own discovery. The neural network. It's not just for machines. It's how they think, how they make decisions. Everything goes through it, but they never considered someone might understand it from the outside. The implications were huge. The aliens had built their entire civilization around this network. They used it to control their ships, their weapons, their very society. But they had never faced an enemy who could see how it worked without being part of it. In the 3 months since the invasion, humanity had learned more about advanced technology than they had in all their history. The aliens had meant to create a workforce. Instead, they had created an army of engineers, technicians, and soldiers, all learning their systems from the inside out. Through the hidden scratches and marks of their secret communication system, Jack received a message from Mary Wells. She had discovered something in the alien data archives. Their neural network had never been attacked before. It had no defenses against outside interference because the aliens couldn't imagine anyone understanding it well enough to attack it. But humans were different. They didn't think like the aliens. Where the aliens saw perfect order, humans saw patterns that could be broken. Where the aliens built walls, humans found doors. Where the aliens created chains, humans forged keys. That night, as Jack lay in his sleeping pod, he thought about Earth. The aliens' atmospheric harvesting was proceeding faster than expected. The barrier around Earth glowed brighter each day as more of their home's air was stolen away. But for the first time since the invasion, Jack felt real hope. The aliens had made a fatal mistake. They had given humanity access to their most precious technology, thinking humans were too primitive to understand it. They never realized that humans had spent their entire history taking things apart to see how they worked. In the darkness, Jack smiled. Soon, the aliens would learn that knowledge wasn't just power, it was freedom. Mary Wells stood at her usual post in the data center, pretending to sort information crystals while actually sending messages across the galaxy. After 6 months of captivity, the humans had turned the aliens' communication system into their own secret weapon. Through her station, messages flowed like rivers. Mining colonies reported their readiness. Maintenance crews confirmed their access to critical systems. Transport workers mapped ship routes and guard positions. What had started as scratches on metal had grown into a vast network of resistance. Alert! Irregular data patterns detected in Section 7, the station's computer announced. Mary kept her face calm as a blue processor walked past. They were getting better at spotting unusual activities, but they still couldn't understand what they were seeing. In her mind, Mary reviewed the latest reports. William Reed had finished his work on a virus that could disrupt the aliens' neural network. Commander Stone had positioned former soldiers throughout key facilities. Earth's atmosphere was now at 40% of its original density. They had less than a month before permanent damage would begin. The door slid open, and Robert from maintenance entered, pushing his cleaning cart. As he worked, he whispered without looking up, "The shipyards are ready. We have people on every major vessel." Mary nodded slightly, continuing her work. The aliens had grown suspicious lately. They had noticed small changes, efficiency rates dropping, equipment failing more often, unusual power fluctuations. But their rigid thinking couldn't grasp the full picture. Through the hidden network, Mary had learned that humans had infiltrated every level of the alien society. Miners who seemed broken by hard labor were actually mapping the locations of weapon stockpiles. Cleanup crews that appeared simple-minded had memorized every security patrol route. Data sorters like herself had learned to read and write the aliens' language. During her rest period, Mary received an urgent message from Commander Stone. The aliens had started investigating some of the accidents in the mining colonies. They were beginning to suspect organized resistance, but their hierarchical minds couldn't understand how slaves could coordinate without leaders or technology. Worker 24,601. Report for emotional scanning. A red processor ordered, approaching her station. Mary complied calmly. She had learned how to control her thoughts during these scans. The aliens could detect strong emotions like fear or anger, but they couldn't understand the quiet determination that burned in every human heart. The scan passed without incident. The aliens saw only what they expected, a compliant worker doing her assigned tasks. They couldn't detect the vast network of resistance that flowed through their empire like blood through veins. That evening, Mary sent the final confirmation to Commander Stone. Everything was in place. The virus was ready. The soldiers were positioned. The workers were prepared. Humanity had built an invisible army right under the aliens' noses. In her sleeping pod, Mary thought about home. The latest images showed Earth wrapped in a sickly yellow haze as the atmospheric harvesters worked day and night. The aliens thought they had given themselves plenty of time to complete their work. They never expected their slaves to fight back so soon. She smiled in the darkness. The aliens had built their empire on control and hierarchy. Every order flowed from top to bottom. Every worker knew their place. Every process followed exact patterns. But humans were different. They worked from the bottom up. They adapted. They improvised. And most importantly, they remembered what the aliens had forgotten. That the most powerful force in the universe wasn't technology or order, but the unbreakable spirit of those fighting for their home. Tomorrow, the aliens would learn that their perfect empire had been housing an army all along. And this army didn't need orders from above to know what needed to be done. William Reed's hands moved quickly across the alien control panel. After months of preparation, the time had finally come. In exactly 5 minutes, the largest uprising in galactic history would begin. All sections report ready. The message flashed across his screen in hidden human code. Throughout the massive space station, maintenance workers stood by critical systems. In the mines below, former soldiers gripped their tools like weapons. In the data centers, information workers prepared to crash the aliens' networks. The red processor in charge of the station stood at its command post, unaware that its perfect world was about to shatter. The aliens' neural sensors showed nothing unusual, just another quiet work cycle with its obedient human slaves. William looked at his time display. 1 minute left. He thought about Earth, its atmosphere now thin and sickly. The aliens had pushed too hard, too fast. They thought they had time. They were wrong. Execute, came the simple command through the hidden network. William pressed the final sequence. The virus he had built over months of secret work flooded into the alien neural network. Across the station, lights flickered. Doors slammed shut. Security systems went dark. The red processor's eyes widened as its neural connection crashed. For the first time in its life, it couldn't feel the network. It was alone in its own mind. Now, Commander Stone's voice boomed through the station speakers, speakers that should have been impossible for humans to access. All at once, the facade of submission shattered. In the mining sectors, humans emerged from their tunnels armed with stolen mining tools and makeshift weapons. In the maintenance shafts, workers disabled security systems and sealed alien guards in their quarters. In the data centers, Mary Wells and her team crashed the entire communication grid. The aliens tried to respond, but their rigid hierarchy worked against them. Without the neural network, they couldn't coordinate. Without their automatic systems, they couldn't control their own facility. Without their emotional sensors, they couldn't predict where humans would strike next. "This is impossible," the red processor said, backing away from advancing humans. "You are just workers. You are controlled. You err. We are human," William said, standing with his fellow maintenance workers. "And we don't stay controlled for long." Across the galaxy, the same scene played out on thousands of ships, stations, and colonies. The virus spread through the alien neural network like fire through dry grass. Their perfect system became their perfect trap. In the space around Earth, the massive barrier flickered and died. The atmospheric harvesting machines shut down, their alien operators suddenly cut off from their control systems. Humans who had been secretly trained on alien technology quickly took control. Commander Stone led the charge to the station's weapon controls. The aliens had never bothered to physically lock anything. Their neural network had been all the security they thought they needed. Now that network was burning, and humans were taking everything. The primary fleet is disabled. Mary's voice came through the human communication channels. Their ships are dead in space. They can't even call for help. The aliens had made 3 fatal mistakes. First, they had assumed that humans would break under slavery like other species. Second, they had given humans access to their most important systems. Third, and most importantly, they had threatened Earth itself. William watched from the command center as human workers became human warriors. The aliens had trained them to run their technology, never imagining that humans would learn to master it instead. In just 6 hours, the greatest empire in the galaxy learned why enslaving humanity had been their worst mistake. Their perfect order had been their weakness. Their rigid control had been their downfall. Their technology had become their prison. And humanity, the species they had thought too primitive to be anything but slaves, had just become their conquerors. 1 month after the Great Uprising, Commander Jack Stone stood on the observation deck of what had once been the aliens' central command station. Earth shone blue and beautiful below, its atmosphere already beginning to heal thanks to reversed alien technology. The last harvesting machine has been converted, Mary Wells reported, walking up beside him. It's now replacing what they stole from our atmosphere. The process should be complete within 6 months. Jack nodded, watching the stars. The galaxy looked different now. What had once been a prison had become humanity's new frontier. The aliens' empire had fractured, their perfect order shattered by the very slaves they had thought too primitive to fear. William's team just finished analyzing their central database, Mary continued. The aliens had enslaved 16 other species before they found Earth. All of them are free now. In the month since the uprising, humanity had discovered just how vast the aliens' empire had been. Thousands of worlds, millions of slaves, all controlled through their neural network. When that network burned, their power had crumbled like dust. Report from the diplomatic team. A young officer called out from his station. 3 more alien sectors have surrendered. They're requesting human oversight for their transition to independence. Jack smiled at the irony. The aliens had wanted workers, and now humans had become teachers instead. Former slaves were learning to use the technology that had once controlled them. Species that had been captive for generations were learning what freedom meant. In the station's massive hangar bay, William Reed worked with a team of engineers, both human and alien. Some of the younger aliens, born after their species' enslavement, had chosen to work with humans. They were fascinated by how humans thought, how they solved problems in ways their neural network had never considered. The network wasn't evil. One young alien explained to William as they repaired a ship's engine. We just forgot how to think without it. Humans reminded us that there are other ways to see the universe. Earth's governments were rebuilding, stronger than before. The invasion had united humanity in ways nothing else could have. Old enemies became allies. Old conflicts seemed meaningless compared to what they had faced together. The alien ships that had once darkened Earth's skies were now humanity's first Starfleet. The barriers that had been their prison now protected Earth from meteors and solar radiation. The technology that had nearly stolen their air now made their planet cleaner and healthier than ever before. Mary's data center had become a university where humans taught other species how to build their own future. The mining colonies were now trading centers where former slaves became merchants and explorers. The maintenance tunnels where humans had once hidden their resistance now carried messages of hope and freedom across the stars. In the evening, Jack met with the council that now governed human space. Representatives from Earth sat alongside leaders from the liberated species, planning a future none of them could have imagined 7 months ago. "We found something interesting in their oldest records," Mary told the council. "The aliens chose Earth because our atmosphere was perfect for their harvesting technology. They thought they were being efficient. Instead, they gave their most valuable resource to their most dangerous enemy. They gave humanity a reason to fight back." Jack looked around the council chamber. Humans who had been miners, technicians, and maintenance workers now sat as equals with alien leaders who had learned wisdom from defeat. Their children would grow up in a galaxy where slavery was a memory and freedom was the natural order. The aliens had wanted to break humanity's spirit. Instead, they had forced humanity to show its true strength. They had wanted to steal Earth's air. Instead, they had given humanity the stars. And now, as the sun set on a free Earth, humanity looked to those stars not with fear, but with hope. They had learned that they were stronger than any chains, smarter than any control, and more powerful than any empire. They had learned that they were, truly and finally, free.